Thanks for tuning in to Know Wine in No Time. I'm your host Dave, and today we'll tackle one of the world's most complex wine growing regions, and that's France's Bordeaux. Wine growing in Bordeaux started actually back in the 1st century AD when the Romans first brought vines to the area. In the time that's passed since, Bordeaux has been controlled by many different countries. Commercially, its big break came when two very powerful families got together, and that was the marriage of Henri Plantagenet and Eleanor of Aquitaine. What happened when those two families got together is it opened up the door to exporting Bordeaux wines to England. And back then, they didn't necessarily call them Bordeaux, they called them clarets. So if you ever see the word claret, it actually pays homage to that ancient tradition. In the late 1800s, Bordeaux actually was decimated by a louse called phylloxera. Phylloxera eats the roots of grapevines and also the leaves of grapevines, and without those two, cultivation cannot take place. When we look at actually where Bordeaux is in France, it's actually in western central France, and it does have a bit of an Atlantic influence. Let's talk about the three types of wines that are made in Bordeaux. First, they have a rouge, so that would be a red wine. Then they have a blanc, which is a white wine. And the third type is called a doux, or sweet wine. So when we look at those three categories, let's look at the red first. In Bordeaux, by law, the red wines can be made of up to 6 different grapes. Those grapes are Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Carmenere, Merlot, Malbec, and Petit Verdot. So any multiples of those 6 can be used, and in some blends, actually all 6 are used. We're going to talk a little bit about where we might find more Cab dominant and where we might find more Merlot dominant wines in just a moment. When we look at the whites, there's actually 3 grapes that influence white wine production in Bordeaux. The first one is a grape called Semillon. The second one is Sauvignon or Sauvignon Blanc. And the third one is Muscadel, or a deviation of the Moscato type of grape. So those 3 come together, 2 very full-bodied and acidic whites, and then the Muscadel is added with just a few percentage points just to soften the blend a bit. The third, the doux, that we talked about earlier, is a dessert type of wine made in the towns of Sauternes and Barsac. And what's interesting about that, and that's really a whole nother subject, is these grapes are left on the vines for an extended period of time. They're acted upon by a fungus called botrytis, and it actually desiccates the grapes, concentrating their flavors. If you've ever thought about ice wine, think about ice wine that comes from an area that really doesn't get ice. So, in Bordeaux, we actually have 3 rivers that create a little bit of an ecosystem. So coming up kind of from the south is one called the Garonne River, and then coming in from the east we have a river called the Dordogne, and they meet to form the Gironde. And the Gironde River actually flows into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, at the confluence where those two come together is an area that we call Entre deux Mers, or translated from French means the land between 2 oceans. Really isn't oceans, it's simply rivers. So, where do things get interesting as we start to decode Bordeaux? Well, at the confluence of those 2 rivers, the Garonne and the Dordogne, where they meet to form the Gironde and head to the Atlantic Ocean, if we were standing in the Gironde and we were standing in the path of the flow, in other words, looking downstream where the flow is going, there's a right bank of the river and there's a left bank of the river. Now, Merlot is the king red grape of Bordeaux. 64% of all plantings in Bordeaux are Merlot. However, if we were looking at a bottle that didn't really tell us what was inside that bottle as far as what the varietals are, a good rule of thumb is to say on the left bank of the Gironde, we're going to have more Cabernet dominant wines, and on the right bank of the Gironde, a little more Merlot dominant wines. So today in Bordeaux, there's 8,600 different winemakers, 54 different appellations, and 700 million bottles of wine produced annually. Truly, truly an amazing, epic region. So, I'm going to go ahead and taste this particular wine today. So today I chose one from the place called Bordeaux Superior. This is a right bank appellation, definitely more Merlot dominant, and it comes to us from the vintner named Chateau Haute-Saurian. So with this particular wine, if we look at its color, we see it's deep dark purple and certainly not transparent. If we look at the aromas, oh my goodness, you start to notice a lot of cedar notes and a little bit of raspberry in the wine, really telling us what's coming. We even get a little bit of vanilla from the oak. Across the palate, those red berry flavors come through, a little bit of raspberry, a little bit of cassis. And then you start to feel the tannins from the Merlot itself. And the tannins express themselves with a little bit of kind of cigar box flavors, a little bit of tobacco, really nice and smooth. The tannins are gripping, but not over the top biting. And this is what you can expect from Bordeaux Reds. Really beautiful wines with a tremendous appeal across a wide range of palates. So I'm going to enjoy this wine. That's all the time I have for today. So join us next time and you'll know wine in no time.